Everyone judged him, but when he broke down, they realized that it was because of their judgments. They had no idea how much pain he was in. Mark had always been an enigma to those around him. He had few friends and was often seen alone, lost in thought. It wasn't until he reached high school that people began to understand his aloofness. Stemmed from a deep emotional wound. Mark's mother died when he was only 6 years old. And while most kids could confide in their parents about their daily problems, Mark had no one. At school, he would often be teased by his classmates, and he would just walk away without a word, his eyes welling up with tears, but he never let the tears fall. He wiped them away and pretended nothing had happened. The other students saw this as weird and began to call him names like crybaby and water eyes. Soon, no one wanted to be his friend. His father, Robert, tried his best to fill the void left by his wife, but he struggled. Robert was a businessman who spent most of his time working. He didn't know how to comfort his son, so he did the only thing he knew. He gave Mark things, new clothes, new shoes, new video games, anything to make him happy. It worked for a while. But as Mark grew older, these material things became meaningless. Then came middle school, which was even harder than elementary. The other kids were more aggressive and Mark found himself getting bullied more often. Some of his classmates shoved him into lockers, others pulled his hair. Still, Mark never cried. Even when he came home with bruises and cuts, he hid them from his father. Robert assumed that Mark was just being reckless and irresponsible, and he punished his son for coming home with injuries. Do I look like I'm playing? Do I look like I'm being reckless? You think I enjoy having these bruises? Mark yelled at his dad one night. You don't know what it's like. You've never experienced what I'm going through. No one understands. With that, Mark ran to his room and slammed the door. Robert looked at the closed door and sighed. He didn't know what to do. He felt like he'd failed as a husband and as a father. He missed his wife more than anything, and he knew that she would have known how to deal with Mark. When she was alive, Mark would tell her everything, and she was always there to listen. She understood him in a way that no one else did. By the time Mark reached high school, the bullying had become unbearable. He started failing his classes and skipping school altogether. Robert was furious. He sent Mark to therapy, but it didn't help. The therapist told Mark that he needed to let go of his grief, but he couldn't. Mark was still angry at his father too. He thought Robert had abandoned him after his mother died and that he was only interested in money. So Mark stopped talking to him altogether. One day, Robert received a call from the school principal. She told him that Mark hadn't shown up in weeks and asked if everything was okay at home. Robert went to see Mark, but his son wasn't in his room. He was hiding under his bed. Why haven't you been going to school? Robert asked, kneeling beside his son. Mark looked up at his father with hatred in his eyes. I don't want to talk about it, he said. Then he turned away and Robert realized that Mark was crying. He quickly got up and ran out of the house. Robert felt awful. He didn't know what to do. He missed his wife more than anything and he knew that she would have known how to deal with Mark, where she could make him talk, he couldn't. Robert decided to take his son out of school and homeschool him. At first, Mark was furious, but he had no choice. Over time, Mark opened up to his father. He told him about the bullying and his anger towards his dad slowly disappeared. Robert listened patiently and told Mark that he was proud of him for being so strong. You are the strongest person I know, Robert said. Don't ever forget that. Mark hugged his father tightly in that moment. He knew that Robert loved him. He might not have been the best father at times, but he loved him all the same. One day, Robert was going through some of his late wifey's things when he found a box filled with letters. They were all addressed to Mark. Robert's heart sank. He knew that these letters were meant to be given to Mark when he was older. Still, he couldn't bear the thought of his son reading these letters without his mother, so he decided to read them himself. The first letter was from when Mark was 2. My dearest Mark, it began. You are such a joy to us. You make us laugh every day. We love you. The next letter was from when Mark was 4. My little man is growing so fast. You're becoming such a big boy. Remember to always stay kind. The last letter was from when Mark was 5. We're so proud of you. You're a smart and caring boy. We love you more than anything in the world. As Robert read these letters, tears streamed down his face. He knew that he had to give them to Mark. That night, Robert sat Mark down and told him that he had something important to give him. Mark's eyes widened when he saw the letters. These are for me, he whispered. Robert nodded and handed them over. Your mother wanted you to have these, he said. Mark opened the first letter and began to read. A smile slowly spread across his face. It was the first time Robert had seen his son smile in years. After reading the first letter, Mark set it down and picked up the second one. He read it aloud. My little man is growing so fast. You're becoming such a big boy. Remember to always stay kind. As he read the last letter, Mark began to cry. Robert pulled him into a tight hug. "It's okay, son," he said. "Let it out." Mark cried for hours. He cried for his mother, for the childhood he had lost, for the pain he had kept inside for so long. Robert didn't stop hugging him. He stayed with his son all night, comforting him as he cried. In the morning, Mark woke up in his bed. He felt much better after crying. He got up and went to the bathroom. When he looked in the mirror, he saw that his eyes were red and swollen. But for the first time in a long time, he smiled. The next day, Mark went to school for the first time in months. He walked through the halls with his head held high. The other students stared at him, whispering to each other, "What's wrong with him?" They said, "He looks like he's been crying." Mark didn't care what they thought. He had finally let go of his grief, and that was all that mattered. Mark's classmates didn't understand why he had been absent for so long, nor did they understand why he was smiling now, but it didn't matter. Mark had moved on, years passed, and Mark graduated. From high school, he went on to college and eventually got a job. He never forgot his mother, but he didn't let his grief define him either. He became a successful businessman just like his father, but he also made time for the things that really mattered. He stayed in touch with his father and visited him often. And though he never married, he had a large circle of friends and was always surrounded by people who loved him. One day, Mark was giving a speech to a group of young entrepreneurs. "Never let your grief control you," he said. "It's okay to be sad, but don't let it consume you. Find ways to honor your loved ones that make you happy, not sad." That's what my mom would have wanted. As Mark spoke, he looked out at the faces in the crowd. Some were nodding their heads in agreement, while others looked confused. It didn't matter. Mark had shared his story in hopes that it would help others, and he knew that it had.